Thank you so much, Nikki, for being here. Wow, so I'm so excited to meet you and to hear you, because your sessions that I see are so incredible. What great titles you have.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I've just got one thing I'm just trying to do. So I've just
No problem.
Just lost the screen for some reason. That'll come back in a minute. Sorry, that's it. It's back. So thank you ever so much for inviting me here today. It's a real pleasure to be joining you. I'm based in the UK, so it's late afternoon for me, and I'm really glad to be joining this session today. So as I mentioned, I'm doing a session all about how you can use Power Automate, so tools that you've already got with Microsoft 365 to help you manage Microsoft 365 evergreen change. So just a little bit about me. So I've already mentioned I'm based in the UK, so my name's Nikki Chapple, and I'm a principal cloud architect for an organisation called Cloudway. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, and I really specialise in Microsoft 365 governance and compliance. And it's really making sure that we support organisations by doing the right things right, and it's balancing that need between that security and that productivity, and really kind of exploiting the tools that you've got to make the most of Microsoft 365 journey. I've got my own website, nikkichapple.com, where I blog and put information out on all sorts of different topics. There is actually a blog on this session, so if you want to kind of follow along and actually look how I did the process, there's a step-by-step instruction guide on my website. I also post on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well. So please feel free to meet up, join with me, have a look at my information. So today is all about answering that challenging question. Are you effectively managing your Microsoft 365 evergreen change? It's a big dramatic change between the historical world of where you had a solution and it stayed there, and you decided as somebody in IT when you were going to do upgrades, and it was all in your control. With the SaaS applications, we have this evergreen change. So change is always happening. So it's not something that you can really control when features and functionality are coming in. Microsoft will push them out at various different times. And I think one thing's for sure, the speed of change is so fast now. There are so many changes coming in all of the time. So it's how do you keep on top of that? How do you know what's coming in? Because some things you don't really need to worry about. It's a minor change, but some things are major changes where you need to decide as an organization what you're going to do. Classic one of this is when they've implemented the Teams meeting expiry policy. So if you don't change that, your Teams meeting recordings will expire after 120 days. Now, the reasoning behind that is all very good. Most people never actually go back and look at the recordings. But if you say we're doing a series of training videos and they've got some longevity, you don't want them to disappear after 120 days. So there's different things that we need to look about. And it's not all just about IT and the impact on IT. There's also the impact on the business as well. So what can we do? And so this session is going to be a deep dive demo into sort of pragmatically how you can actually set something up in your organization to make the process more automated and have a more streamlined approach. So the problems really that we've got with Microsoft 365 change management is when you just have the information in the message center, there's a lack of visibility of any triaging process or accuracy or who's accountable for things, because the messages are just in the message center. It's just a list of information being presented to you. There's various actions and activities that may happen on some or all of the changes, and that's going to be different depending on the types of change. The people might be different depending on one team might be looking after Teams and another team might be looking after Exchange. So it's not always one person that's in control of the whole process. Therefore, it's really difficult to hold people accountable to those processes because you're relying on somebody looking at the message center in the admin center and trying to notify people. Therefore, this is a heavy operational cost to track the changes. It's a manual solution. Somebody is spending time pushing out information to different people rather than the value add stuff of actually saying, how can we maximize this change? What configuration do we need to do? Is there any training updates, etc.? And the other thing that's really important with this is the messages for Microsoft 365 changes are in an admin center. Therefore, you need admin permissions. So how do the non-admins, so the business champions, the training teams, etc., the communication teams, find out about these changes? Because they need to go and communicate with the organization if there's a major change. So really what happens is people end up managing the message center content. All you're doing is pushing the information around, trying to get the information to the right people rather than managing the change. Also, what tends to happen is people are really busy. They forget to have a look and keep on top of the changes coming in. So what we're going to look at is how can we address some of these? How can we look at some of the change management, standard change management best practices and take that and put that in place for managing our Microsoft 365 evergreen change? So we need to establish a change process and agree ownership of those tasks to different people. We need to make sure there's triages. I recommend at least, once a week, depending on the size of the organization and the number of teams. Changes are coming in thick and fast. Normally you get 28 days notice, but not always. So it's good to keep on top of it and kind of have it in your diary. I need to go and check and look at these. It's important to make sure that the right owner or owners are assigned to the tasks. And there's a handoff process if you've got multiple steps to look at. And really, we want some sort of workflow management tool to take the headache out of just sending around emails and then people forgetting to read them and something important changes in Microsoft 365. And then you realize after it's been deployed, it has an impact either on the IT or the business side. So how can we use a workflow tool to support us? So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at three things today. One is we're going to look at what's out of the box. So the message center changes. So we'll have a look at that. So what we can do is we'll look at that. Then what you can do, another feature that's out of the box is, as well as the message center changes and having a look at that, we'll then look at how we can sync those message center changes to a planner board. So that addresses one of the things we were talking about earlier. Let's have a workflow management tool. However, there are some limitations with the out of the box process. There's still a lot of manual work to do. So what I'm really going to do, and this will be the majority of the demonstration, is show you how you can customize it and add other automation on the top. So we're going to label planning tasks. We can add checklists. We can assign tasks to one or multiple people. We can notify stakeholders. And this can be automated. So it can sit in the background and just process. So that means you don't need to worry about going into the message center once a week, understanding what changes are important, trying to work out who needs to look at what, following up, making sure people have done the actions. This can all be automated, and then you just look at the progress. You've got one single source of truth, your planner. So really, the easiest way for me to do this is a demo. So fingers crossed, all is well and works well. I did earlier on today, so let's change. So the first thing we're going to do is actually look at role assignments. So the messages are in the Microsoft 365 Message Center, Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So an end user doesn't have access to the information. However, there are some roles. So if we have a bit of that, if we look and search under the roles, that's not going to show me. Brilliant. Let's try it again. So we've got some roles somewhere, and here we go. We've got two roles here. There's a message center privacy reader that can look at any data privacy messages, and that's all they can see is a subset of the messages. Or we can get a message center reader role, so this role here. And that role can actually, as it says, read, share messages in the message center. Great. However, this is the gotcha on this. You've also got read-only access to users, groups, domains, and subscriptions. And for many organizations, that is far too much access to give to someone. You don't want to be able to see all the users and all the groups in your organization. You know, particularly with the groups, the group name might be confidential. So I find a lot of clients that I'm working with are reticent to give out these roles because it's giving too wide a permission. So let's just flick over to Adele. And Adele has been given this role. So just in the admin center, just to show that she's got this kind of cut down view here, so she can see the messages here. However, here we go. She can now see all users in the organization. And look, potentially she could export those users, and she can see also all teams and groups. So for many organizations, even though this is a read-only and a limited access role, having access to users and groups is far too many permissions for somebody who might be the user adoption or the training role. They don't need access to this. So there isn't a role where you can just see the changes. That was the kind of the first thing to go through. So now let's have a quick look at the message center, just in case people are not familiar with it. So I need to get to the message center. There we go. So the message center gives you all of the changes that are up and coming for Microsoft 365 solutions. Normally, Microsoft give you at least 28 days, unless it's a major change and there's a much longer frequency and timescale if it's something significant. So all of the changes come in and there's a big long list. And so on the 29th, so we've had 4 changes there. So quite often there's 4 or 5 changes per day across all of the different services. So there's some things that you can do, because not everybody is interested in everything. So you've got all sorts of, you've got security things, a lot there, plus you've got kind of teams, you've got apps, you've got compliance. There's a lot of information. So what you can do is you can go into the preferences and you can customize your view. So you can decide what features you're interested in and you just untick them. So that's a bit, see how many different services there are. So you can choose and you can filter them. So that's one way. If you've got access to this, then you know it's always worth filtering it if you're interested. Now, traditionally, what you could do is you could set up this email that would send you a notification. And I think a lot of people are relying on this. The weekly email, again, of all of the services or a subset of the services to be sent to you. Plus, you can also select some other email addresses. But wait, look, why only 2 email addresses? For a large organization, there's going to be more than 2 stakeholders. So that's a limitation. You're going to email it to yourself and then you're going to forward it on. You know, it's very clunky solution. So you've got some customization, but it is limited. It's, you know, sending it via email. What I do think is good about the view is I do like the way the filters work. So, you know, I tend to have all of the services out there and then I decide what I want to look on. So if I want to say, what have we got on Microsoft Teams coming up on the roadmap, we can filter it like that. So that's quite good. You can filter it on tags. Is it a feature update? Has it got an admin update? Is it a major update? For example, you've got some major updates here, and you can have the message statuses. So you can tag them if you think it's a favorite and you want to come back, and it knows whether you've read them or not. So you can change the statuses there. So I find that's quite a useful thing to do and work with. In addition to that, what you've got is an inbox and an archive. So if you are going to use this, you get a lot of, there's 374 items here. These are things that are potentially coming up in the next 28 days. That's a lot. Now, if you've read them, you might want to move them to an archive. So for example, I've looked at this change here. I've already looked at, I can click on that and that will then go off and we can see that should be in the archive. It's moved into the archive. We can favorite, so we can have a little star next to it, we can read and unread. So that's one way of managing it. But it's really, this is only suitable, you know, if it's a one person process, it's a small organization, we've only got one admin person managing all of the changes coming through. Most organizations, you've got multiple stakeholders involved. So what else can we have a look at? So let's have a look at this one here for Teams. When you open it up, there's some key things I want to point out here because we're going to be looking at this later. Service. So you've got this service here, and that's what's been used to filter on. So it's great. We've got over 300 changes, but I can slice and dice and have a look at them based on that service. And I can also have a look at them based on these tags as well. So we had a filter for tags. So we'll need to look at that information later when it's in Planner. We can also share it. So again, limited to 2 email addresses. So yes, you can share individual changes with people and they will get this message here. So all of the information about that post there. So it does give you information on a summary, when it's going to happen, and potentially the impact to your organization. So that's kind of the out of the box kind of experience. Now, what you can do is you can sync it to Planner. So really that's our next step that we can have a look at, is we can go up to the top here. And for some reason, I can't see it because I've ticked, let me untick that. We've got this tab called Planner Syncing. So I can sync the Planner. It's already synced, so let me stop syncing it for a moment. So we can set up syncing, and what this is saying, it's going to take all of those tasks, the posts that you see, and every time a new post comes on the message center, it's going to send it to a Planner board that where you want to host it, and then anybody who's got access to that Planner board will be able to see the changes. So that's kind of solving that workflow issue. We've now got a workflow tool, and it's also solving the issue about admins and non-admins. So of course, a planner, an end user can have access to. So you don't have to worry about giving those permissions that give people too much access. So let's start syncing. So we need to search for a plan, or you can create a plan. So what I tend to do here is I would, I've got a team here, I've called it Evergreen Change, and I've added a planner here. I'll just show you the process that you go through. To add a planner, look for tasks by planner, and then you can either add a new plan, or you can add, I'm not going to be using this one, I'm just showing you the concept. So all you've got to do is do that. That is going to create now a planner. So it's created a planner, and you've got that view with inside Teams. You can also see it within the Planner app as well. So I'm not going to use that because what I will say is when you set up a plan, sometimes it takes a few minutes to be able to set up that sync. Okay, so now we want to, so we're into the syncing, set up the plan. So like all good things, I've created one earlier, and I'm going to call this one sync. So that's my plan. So my plan sync is in that team, this message center sync here. It's under here, sync. That's where it is there. So that's what I'm going to link it to. An existing bucket. So the way Planner works, it's a bit like sort of a Kanban type board. You always have a to-do bucket, and then you can create your own ones. So I tend to push it into just the bulk standard to-do, because they are to-do. They're on your backlog to have a look at. So I'll select to-do. Now, if you want to have a different bucket that you put it in, you can either set one up beforehand, or you can create a new bucket. I just tend, because I'm only using this for message center changes, I just use the standard one. Next. Now this is important. You can choose which messages to sync. Do you want all of them? Do you want major ones? And Again, like that view we had, we can start filtering them. So for example, I might only be interested in Exchange Online. What else do we want? We want to look at, for example, look at Teams, and we'll look at OneDrive, and we might want to be interested, say, in SharePoint. But for my job role, not interested in the rest of the products, other people in the organization. So for example, I could create this. So I'm just going to get any changes related to Exchange Online, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint Online, and that's going to be sent to my planner. Next, now this is important. The first time you run this, it will allow you to go backwards and choose current messages. So there was 370 something messages. Now, not all of those are to do with those 4 areas I'm covering, but because Microsoft is giving you sort of normally 28 days notice, I recommend the first time you do it is bring back those 28 days worth of changes. So you can actually start by saying, what's in my current backlog? Now, for the purpose of this, I don't want too many changes coming in, so I'm just going to do the past 7 days. But say I would recommend doing the past 28. As it says there, this is a one-time only, it's seeding your planner, so do that. So that's finishing. Now, we've sent the existing changes. Now we want to set up that Power Automate process that's going to sync these changes on a regular basis. So I tend to just do it on a daily basis. Every time there's a change coming in on a daily basis, we'll sync it over to Planner. I want to say I start work at 9, so let's sync them at 7 o'clock in the morning. What you'll notice is I can't go any earlier. It's all greyed out, and that's because the start date is today. What you've got to do if you want it at any time earlier than the current time, you need to forward it onto a day. So tomorrow, now I've got the ability to go and say I want it set up. Starting from tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the morning, repeat every single day. So I'm going to get a daily sync to that planner. So there's no more needing to go into the message center and sending off those emails. That's going to do it for me. Then you create with the Power Automate. So this goes through. You may need to sort of agree to the terms. You need to create the flow, sign in if you haven't done it already. So it's just click to say this flow is linked to your name. So you are the owner of this flow, and we've created it. So that's now going away and creating it. So you think, great, I've got these 4 services. Now we've got somebody else in the organization that's interested in another set of services, and they may want to do the same. So what we'll do first of all is let's see if that's already synced coming in. Hopefully, I just refresh the screen. Here we go. So yeah, I just needed to just do that refresh to go in here. So what you've seen now is all of the changes for the last 28 days that related to Teams, and what I choose SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange. So let's have a quick look at this. So here's a change where it comes in. So you've got the title of the change, and what you've got here in front of it, that's the solution. So when we looked at the change back in the message center here, that service was a kind of a separate field. So were the tags. However, when you look at the planner task, they've put the service in with the title. So it's limited information. So that's not an independent column that you can search on. Also, the tags are embedded within the description. So what you get when the tasks come in, they're all coming in kind of one column, and there's no way to say, show me all the tasks with Teams or show me all the tasks with SharePoint, unless I start doing a filter by keyword and just do Teams. But then that would pick up potentially anything to do with Teams. It's not doing anything. So that's kind of what the sync is. Now, that's great. You can go away and start looking at it. But what happens if there's another department and they also want to look at this and say, well, I'm interested in security. So let me just quickly switch over. I'm in as another person now. And here we go. I've got the message center. I've got an admin role as well. So I want to sync all of these things that are to do with, say, Defender, because that's my job role in security. I go into Planner Sync. Hold on a minute. I can't do anything because you can only have one sync per organization. So this is kind of a major limitation. So what you have to remember when you set up the sync is I always recommend syncing everything unless your business does not use that application. So for example, if you don't use Yammer at all across the organization, you can take that out. But if you use the features anywhere across the organization, you need to sync it over because you can only have that one sync. So I can't come in as this user now, this MOD administrator, and set up my own sync for what I need to do. So what we need to do is think about that process up front, who needs access, which stakeholders are there across the organization, and actually create one team with all of those IT, security, business stakeholders in, and sync the planner down to kind of that one source, and then invite everybody into that team. You can't have the multiple views. Now, what I can do is I can go in and edit it. So I can go in here if I want and start editing the changes. So don't worry if you've already set this up and then realize, oh my gosh, I've only chosen a subset. You can go and add additional things in as well. So you can add them all. So that's no problem at all. But the other thing is, you can see is I've got this notice to say I don't have access to the planner. I'm not a member of that team. So again, that's another issue. So I've added my things that I'm interested in, but because I'm not a member of the team, I don't have access to the planner. So again, think of one team, evergreen change team across your organization. All of those different stakeholders need to be invited into that team, and you've got one planner that you're going to have to work on across the organization to get that holistic view. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to actually just stop the syncing because I'll need to restart it later. But let's just have a little look. Let's go back in here again and look at what you can do with the planner. So you can see the planner either within Teams here, or you can actually see it directly in the planner app as well. So that was the one called Sync. So you've got two views, slightly different views here. So if we go back to Teams, you can choose to have a board view. So this is like your post-it note view, and you can have your different buckets. You can also have a list view if you like lists. You can have a chart view. We're not seeing very much in the charts at the moment because we haven't done anything. And we can see a scheduled view if there's any dates. So when you start planning your activities. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do. So I'm in the message center. I've got these things synced. However, as I mentioned, you've got all of the changes in kind of one big to-do bucket. So you've still got manual work around. It's going to have to be somebody's responsibility to look in here and say, that one says Microsoft Teams. I'm going to add a label for Microsoft Teams. For this scenario, Microsoft Teams is going to be a pink label. If I just click the pink label, well, does anybody else in the team know that I've decided a pink label is going to be Teams? What you need to do is edit each label and say, well, this one is now called, pink label is now called Teams. So you'd have to go through each change that's coming in on a daily or a weekly basis, however long you want to do it, and kind of sync those in and add that in. So that's quite a lot of work to go through. If we're saying 4 or 5 a day, that's 25 per week. That's quite a lot. You also might want to actually set a priority, high, medium and low. You might also have a standard process that you want to go through, so like a checklist. So often I'll find there might be an IT assessment. You might want to have a business assessment. You might want a security assessment, etc. Whatever your business processes are. And what a checklist allows you to do is, if you've got multiple people working on a planner task simultaneously and concurrently, you can go in and say, well, I've done my IT assessment. I'll tick it off to say, look, 1 out of 3 tasks are done. I can go in here and I can put my note and say IT assessment impact, whatever you want. You can put information there. So I can put my comments in on here. Sorry, excuse me. I can also go in here and I can say I'm working on it. So I'm now in progress. I've done something. We've done the IT assessment. And a colleague of mine might be doing the security. So we can add people in here. So actually, I'll just... So we can assign somebody to the task as well. So now when we look at that task, when it's collapsed, you'll see it's slightly different from the what it was before. So before, you've just got the text in here. Now, because you've done some activity, you've got this little circle. And if I make that bit bigger, I can make that bigger. What you'll see here, it's half, so it's in progress. If there were any attachments come through on the change, or if you wanted to add your own attachments to it, you can. And you see this checklist, 1 out of 3 is complete. You can see who it's been assigned to. And if I added a due date, I could put in a date, a due date. It would put it in there. So again, we need to do some activities in here before we kind of know that these are right. So this one here is a Teams change. So if we go through this team, let's find a one that's not Teams. Pretend this is something else. This could be a red one, and let's call the red label. Maybe this is, that's general. So we've added different labels, so you can see that there. So now you've got information in. What helps is now this kind of reporting that we can see. So I can now, that's why I couldn't do it. I can now group by. So now I've got it labeled, I can group by labels. So I can see ones that I haven't had labels on. So here's one with Exchange Online. Let's add a label. That could be a yellow label. So now when we go across, we've got ones that aren't labeled, Teams, General, Exchange Online. So now we've got it labeled, we've got some extra filtering that we can go on. But I've had to do that. That's quite a bit of work to do. Also, once you've started assigning them to people, you can also group by who they're assigned to. So we've got different people. So what you'll have here is the people that have been assigned tasks will go in there. So that's quite useful. I'm a member of the team. You might have 20 people in your team. You can go in there and you can filter and say what's been assigned to me, or what's been assigned to Teams, for example. I can see that information now in a list. You've got a little bit more information. You've got some coloured dots here. You can see whether things are in progress, who it's been assigned to. So if you prefer a list view here. Now, once this is up and running, you can start putting some charts. So I can say of my tasks coming in, 6 haven't been started, 1's in progress. I haven't got any late. I can see things by buckets. I've only got a to-do bucket. I can see things by priorities, members, etc. So I can have a look at that type of information. So, and the schedule, if you've put dates and things in, it will kind of work on the schedule as well. So you need to do something with the information coming in from the message center before it's really valuable. So yeah, you need to work and decide, how you're going to manage this. Do you need other buckets? So for example, do you need other buckets? Some people do in progress done. I wouldn't bother doing that because you can group by progress, not started, in progress, completed. So that's already there as a view. So you're kind of wasting it really. So you can choose different ways of kind of looking at it. So that's quite a useful way of doing things. So let me see what else. So the next thing to do is we can now take this and say, how can I do something more with this? Is there a way where I don't need to go in as an admin into 25 changes per week, go in and manually tag them all, manually go in, assign people. And if you've got a standard process and that process has got 5 steps, you don't want to be going and putting 5 steps in each one of these tasks. That's a lot of kind of processing time that's not adding any real value to your organization. So I'm going to show you now how we can use Power Automate to automate these steps that we've just seen. So what I'm going to do is I've stopped the sync because we'll start a new sync. But the first thing I'm going to do is I need to make sure for this process that I add in the other member of the team. So it's a very small team. We've just got 2 people. I've just got 2 users on the go. So we've got a team, just got 2 people. Normally you'd have more people than that. Whoever's account that's going to be creating the Power Automate needs to be an owner of the team. Otherwise, you won't see some of the functionality. So if I'm going to do it from the MOD account, and I'm going to make that an owner of the team. Now, when you think about these steps, and it's the same for the sync as well, if I've created that sync is in my name. If I leave that organization and my account is disabled or deleted, then the Power Automate processes will stop. Therefore, your sync will stop. So think about when you're setting up, going in here, this planning, it might be worth doing it from maybe an admin account or something that's more of a kind of a service account rather than a user account. So you've got that longevity. And I'll show you that in a minute when we go into the planner. So let's go into Power Automate. Okay, so let's have a look at, can we see, let me move that out of the way, the planner sync task. You need to look under shared with me. Oh, maybe I didn't set it up. I can't remember who set it up now. I just need to look at the Power Automate. It's a problem when you have multiple people and you're working on stuff. Here we go. Yeah, so it must have been Adele who'd set it up. So if Adele leaves the organization, if you actually look at this sync that's been set up, the owner is Adele. So if Adele leaves, this sync process stops. So yeah, that's another important thing. Now, I could have a look at this process. Let's have a look at what this sync is doing. All it's doing is on a regular basis, that basis that we set up in the message center. So I said I wanted my changes 7 o'clock in the morning every day. So here it is on a daily basis. And then it's syncing it to the planner. And it says no additional information. So this is an admin process. So I first thought, great, there's a box, new step. I can build on this. So every time it's synced to the planner, I can go and do some other action. So I might want to say, well, it's gone to planner. Now let's update that planner task. So if I go in and look at task and update a task, see the first time you do stuff, you'll need to connect in. Now, what you'll need to do is you need to get the ID of that task that's just been created. The problem is this. Normally, when you create a Power Automate process, you've got that dynamic content from either the trigger or the previous steps that you can use. There isn't any dynamic content. So you can't build on this process. So we need to think about another way of doing it. So let me just get rid of that. So we've got to create a new process, a new Power Automate. So we know that these changes are coming in. Now, luckily for us, there's a trigger when a new task is added to a planner board. We can use that to trigger an automated flow. So that's what we want to do. So the message center sync is going to post that message as a task into the planner board, and that's going to trigger our next step. So that's what we're going to start off with. So what we need to do, so let's search for task, see what we get. When a task is assigned to me, I can't see it. Oh no, that's my name of my flow. Message center sync. Task, when a task is assigned to me. No, that's not right. When a task is created. Yes, that's what I want to do. So it's 3 task related actions here. Assigned to me, when it's created or completed. We want when that sync creates a new task for each message center. So we're going to select that. So now we need to decide where we're going to store the information. So very much like when we set up the sync, we need to now choose that same location. So when a task is located in that planner. Now I'm going to restart the sync process. So I will actually choose a different one, but that was the evergreen change. So remember, you need to be the owner and we need to check the plan. I'm going to use a new one because we've already put some data in that other one. So when I set up a new sync in a minute, we'll sync it to this one called Sync Advanced. So it's now saying every time a message center change is created in that planner board, start my flow. So that's step 1. So step number 2 is we need to get some information about that task. We need to get the details of that task. So if we search for task and we want to get task details, and we need to select the ID of when a new task is created, because that's the key. So what it's saying is give me all the task details, so the information on that. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to update the task with a checklist. So you saw me having a checklist, you know, an IT assessment, business assessment, a security assessment. Well, we can update that as well. So what we now need to do is look for update task details. There's 2 things when you're doing tasks. You're either updating the details, which is kind of the description and the checklist, or the task itself. So sometimes we need to do both. Update task details. So here we are. We want to take the ID of the task that was created. Custom value, search for the ID. We can get the ID when a new task is created ID. We're not going to change the description or any of these other things. Here's the bit we're interested in. Here's the checklist. 3 elements to the checklist. The first one is a number or a identifier. You know, which order do you want them to be in? So number 1. Then we want IT assessment. And importantly, you must do this bit. I always forget, is it checked or not? So we don't want them checked. we want them to be done. New item. So we said, was it a security assessment? I can't spell. And no, and the third one, we might want a business. So what that's going to do is when that change comes in, we're going to update it, each message that comes in automatically with a 3-step checklist: IT assessment, security assessment, and business assessment. So that saves us having to do that. So if you've got multiple steps in the process, I recommend doing that. So that's the first thing. The next thing we want to automate is that process of the labeling. So I had to go in before, look at it and actually say, is it a Teams change? Is it, is it to do with admin, or is it a business change? So just quickly go back and have a look at that in the message center. So really, I'm going to be showing you now how we can create labels either related to the service. Now here's a service here, and that service appears in the title, at the very beginning of the title of the task. The tags of the message here are in the body. So let's have a quick look at that. We've got one here. See, in square brackets at the front, that's Microsoft Teams. So that's the solution. And here the tags are in the notes. So that's called the description when you're in Power Automate. So we need to try and extract this information out to automatically create the labels that we're going to add. Okay. So what we need to do, we need to add a different step, because that update task detail doesn't allow us to create any labels. So now we need to update task. And what we're looking for is update task version 2 preview. If you just do update task, that one, then you can't see the labels. It's got to be this version 2. Yep. Again, we're updating that task that came in. So we need the ID, custom, search for ID, and get the ID of when a new task is created. Done it twice. We don't need to change the title. You could put a date in here if you're interested in a due date. You could say, I always want it in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. You can do that. But what we're interested in is these buckets. So this is where we're going here. So, we saw that these labels are just colors coded, and we can, and we went into the task itself, and we could change the labels. So they're all just shown as colors here. So it's important you remember the rules that you're doing here, because when you go in to the planner afterwards, we've got to put the text associated with them. Otherwise, it'll say this is a pink task, this is a blue task, and nobody knows what pink and blue are. So I've written it down so I remember what I'm going to do just for this purpose. Is I'm going to make a pink is to do with Teams. And Teams is a service, and that service, when we had a look, is in this title. So we need to search, and we're going to use something called contains. And we're going to say, does the title contain the words Microsoft Teams? You could put the square brackets in there if you wanted. I don't bother. Or you could just search for the word Teams, for example, and that's how we can extract information out. Okay, so we said pink is going to be Teams. Enter a custom value. Now, we're not creating that dynamic content to start off with. We're going to create an expression. So that expression is contains. Open bracket. Go to your dynamic content, and now we want to look at the title. So let's scroll down, and I know because I've been looking at this, the title's right at the bottom. So we want the actual title of, go back up, when a new task is created. Fill in the title. So we're saying contains in the title. and then between that square bracket and the final bracket, comma, put your single quote in. See, it's putting a single quote either side. Put your text string inside of that. Microsoft Teams. Okay, so that's put it in there. Now red, we're going to be, this is a major update. So we want to look for a major update. That was a tag. And when you look at your task, these tags, feature updates, user impact, admin update, etc., are going to be in the notes here, which is called the description. So we want a slightly different process. Again, custom expression contains. This time when we go to dynamic content, we want to look for the description. Ah, yes, the description is in get task details. Not in that new task, it's in that get task details. So we get the description out. Same process, go right the way through to the end, in between the square bracket and the last bracket, comma, single quotes, it's opening that pair of quotes, and we want to search for major update. Searching for the word major update in the description. We'll do a couple more for the purposes of this. Yellow is going to be admin impact. Copy this. Once you've got the couple of them, you can actually go and edit them. It's quicker. It's a major update, so that's going to be admin impact. And we've said, I've decided green is going to be SharePoint. SharePoint is a service in the title, so let's copy that one. And so that is so just look for SharePoint, make sure that's right. Is the search parameters case sensitive? I haven't actually checked that out. I try and do the same case as in the information. So yeah, it's a good question. I haven't actually checked it out. Done something wrong in that one. Have a look at the title. Title in twice. Yeah. This one, it was SharePoint. Okay, so you can keep going on and say, I normally say copy them all out, and then you can just keep going to the words. So again, let's try copy this. No, I didn't work last time. Go in there, and then I can edit this. So blue is going to be OneDrive. Okay. So it would take you a little bit longer to do most of them, or your important ones. You've got lots of colors. So, you know, think about that. That's how many labels you can do. It takes a little bit of time, but once you've done it, it's automatically going to tag. The important thing is here is if it said SharePoint and OneDrive, because you're doing the contains, it would actually label things with the multiple labels. So that's another good thing to do that. So that's now going through. So we've changes come in, triggers the flow. We've updated the planner task with checklist, and we've updated that planner task to add some labels. So that's two things that we've checked off. So that's going to save us a huge amount of time. So next I want to assign some tasks to different people. Now, quite often different tasks may have different sets of stakeholders. So in this scenario, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a condition step. And we're going to do conditions based on, I'm just using those labels. So for example, if it has a pink label, and a pink label means teams, it might be person A. If it's got a yellow label, which is an admin impact, we might need a different group of people. So depending on the rules, it's going to go in different places. So what we can do is we can search for pink. Now, importantly, make sure you select pink, update a task. If you've done when a task is created, all of those labels were empty. So it's always going to come out false. So make sure that you've done the updated one, and make sure you choose a label that you've actually filled in. Is equal to, and this is a Boolean field, true or false. Go to the expression, and we want true. So what we're saying here is if it has a pink label, which means it's teams, then it's yes. If it's not teams, it's no. So we can have some different actions now. So there's an action where you can assign a task to people. So let's have a look. Assign. Bottom. Add assignees. So I need to find out that task ID again. So that comes to the bottom, custom value, search for your ID, and pick your ID. And then you can decide who you want to send it to. So here, just for simplicity's sake, we can add in, people's email addresses. But you may want to kind of, if you do that, then if people leave the organization, actually you want to be able to update this. So you might actually say, well, what I'll do is I'm going to set up a variable at the top. Let's initialize a variable. And I'm going to put the, let's rename this one, team. So this is going to be the people that are going to get the team's email. So bear with me a second. Switch this over here. So I'm just going to change screen. I need to find out the right email addresses now. Sorry, I should have had this prepared before. Right, let's find somebody's email address. Let's copy that out. String, and we're going to call this one var teams. So you can have people's names there. So that's one way of, if you need to send it to different people, create a variable up front with the one or more people in it. That way you don't have to worry about going down in the body of the flow later on. You can just change it right at the top. So that's one way. If you want to have multiple people, works just the same way as other processes. You've got to have that semicolon delimited list of email addresses. So for this, we'll just have one. So we've got Adele there. So what I can do now is back in my condition, assign tasks, and I want to assign it rather than here a comma, semicolon, separated lists of IDs or email addresses. I've already set that up front at the beginning of my flow. So we can just say, send it to whoever is in here. So it means if I want to change or add more people, I can just add it here right at the top rather than hunting through. So that's what we're saying is, if it's teams, let's send it to one person in that variable, which happens to be Adele. If it's not, well, then again, let's do another task that would add assignees. add assignees to the task. Again, we want the ID of the task. Task. There we go. We've got the ID. Now this time, what we might want to do is we might want to send it to a group of people. So you can have a task that you might want to assign to lots of people. And you don't want to worry about remembering to go into this flow and updating. So what we'll do is we're going to create another variable. It's that. Put it here. Again, it's a string variable. And this one is var not teams. We're going to leave this one blank. So let's rename that there. Just try and save this. Add assignees. So we've got two variables, one for teams, one for not teams. But this time I'm going to leave that blank. I'm just going to set the variable up because the variables need to be initialized in the main body. When you start working in lower levels, you can't create those, initialize those variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this task to a group of people, but I need to do another step first. So what I'm going to do is I need to look for groups. Here we go, Office 365 groups. So Office 365 groups manage membership for teams and groups, and so not teams. So when you're talking about activities to do with people, members and owners of the team, you always have to look for activities, actions to do with the Office 365 groups, because it goes across all of the different group types. There is Teams functionality. So if you want to post a message to a Teams chat, for example, that's Teams specific. So that's under Teams. So just remember that if it's to do with membership, it's always groups. So as long as I'm an owner of the group, I can get a list of the members of those groups. It does rely on the person who's creating a flow being a member. So what I want to do is, here we are, list group members. So these are the groups I've got access to. And for example, I'm going to choose IT operations. So not the team where the list is, we're going to have another team. So we've got a group there. And it might be IT operations. All of those are a member of the Evergreen Change group. So this is saying, give me a list of all the members. So what we need to do is swap these two around. So obviously we need to get that first. And then what we're going to do is add that list of members to that variable that we've created. And that is append to string variable. So it's going to go through the membership one by one and add each member of that group, members and owners, to this string. So we created one called not teams. And what we want is we want their email address. So here we go. Here's all the attributes we can get out mail. Now what you'll see here is the apply to each step has been automatically added. That's because we're talking about an array here. There's one or more members of that team. So when you do the get group, it's going to go through each one in turn and add them. So that's apply to each value in the teams, each of those, add that one by one to that string variable. Importantly, we need a semicolon separated list. Don't forget to put the semicolon in. Otherwise, you'll just get a big long list of emails and the next step will fail. Yeah, people often comment and come to me and said, I've tried to follow your process, Nikki, on your blog, but it doesn't work. Why? It's really difficult to see that little semicolon. That's why. So you look at the picture and you think you've done it okay, and then you're forgetting, that small but important little step is required. So that's going to go through and add everything in. Now, what we can do is we can now add in that variable of not teams. So we've now gone through, so we've added that checklist we've added some labels, and we've now done a choice, just a simple one based on Teams, just to say if it's Teams, we're going to send it to that list of named people that we've configured at the top of the Teams in the variable. If it's not Teamed, then we're going to get the membership of a group, so we don't need to worry about maintaining that list within Teams, and assign the task to those people. And then what we'll do after that is we might want to send some communications out. So what we'll do is those communications are going to go out, whether it's Teams or not Teams. We want to send some communications out. So we'll make sure you add the next step after the condition. So what we're going to do is we want to send a Teams message, post a message in a chat or channel. You can choose to send that message either as the flow bot or as a particular user. So you can choose, I'll just use a flow bot. And then where do I want to post it to? Do I want to send a message to a channel in a team, to a chat, to a named person in a chat, or to a group chat? Well, I want to send it to a channel. And what I'm going to do for this one is I want to send this maybe to a team that might not have access to the Evergreen Change team and the planner, but I just want to notify them a summary of what's going on. So I can do that. So I can pick a team. Let's just pick a team here. So we've got the design team, for example, and we'll post it in the general channel here. And then we can type in a message. So what we can do is we can find our information and paste it in here. So for example, let's find the title. So we've got the title of update the task. And then we might want to put the description in as well, because this group of people doesn't have access to the planner. So you can't say, here's a link to the planner, because they don't have access. So you need to put all of the information in. So here we go. Here's the description. So it's just going to send a message every time there's a new task. I'm going to send it to the design team in the general channel, and it's going to say the title. You might want some words at the front. New message. Enter change. Let's keep saving that. Make sure that works. So we've saved that. Now we can do something a little bit more sophisticated if we're doing maybe a message to the Evergreen Change, because we might want to put a link into the actual planner task. So people say, here's a summary of the change, click here to view it. So what you can do, you can use adaptive cards. So you can design those to have a particular look and feel, have images in it, and you can have action links, and those action links is what we're going to use to open up the task. So I want post an adaptive card. We'll do it as a flow bot. We want to put it to a channel. We're going to send it to the Evergreen Change team. This is important. If we're going to be doing this with a link to the planner task, you've got to make sure that it's the same team that the planner task is in. Otherwise, you're going to send it. People are going to click on the link and say, well, I can't open it. And in the channel, let me just check which one. Message center sync. We're going to send it to the message center sync, and now adaptive card. So bear with me. I do have one of these I prepared earlier. Just going to, so I've got a second screen here where I've posted in the adaptive card, because I'm quite good at remembering things, but there's no way off the top of my head that I'm ever going to remember the JSON for an adaptive card and get it to work correctly. So let's find it. A, Control C. There we go. So this is JSON. So, and it allows you, say, to do some more custom design. So there's so this it's a JSON template. I'm trying to think there's a good website that you can go to. I'll find it in a minute. It's on my blog where there's an adaptive card designer. But I'll walk through this and then I will look for that in a minute to find the link for that. Just so bear with me, I can just go through. There you go. The link here. So yeah, so what you can do is, and this is how I test it, is you go into adaptivecards.io. So I can post that in here as well. So you've got that in the chat, and that allows you to create different types of adaptive cards for different types of applications. So it's not just Teams. So you can go through here, make sure you do you want to work on something for Teams. Do you want to work on dark things? There's examples in here, etc. So there's things that you can do in there. So, but that's a whole another session really on how to use adaptive cards. So I've pasted in some an adaptive card that I've made already. There is one on, say, on my blog, so you can copy and paste that out as well. So what it's saying is it's JSON. So here's the body. We're going to be looking at some text block. Text is large and it's in a bolder font. And the text is new message center task created. And we've got some wrapping going on, and it's a heading and it's got accents. So that's the formatting for the title. Then we're going to have a number of bits of information called a fact set. So it's just a list of information. So it's going to say a title. What's going to be the title? Well, the title is the title coming from your task. The created date, if you want to have a created date, if you're using that, you could post that in. You could have a due date. You can pull out, lots of information. But because this is just really a summary, I'm going to include a link to the task. I don't need to put the description in because I'm just kind of really want something quite simple. So, for example, I might say, well, actually, I don't want to have the created date.
Nikki, this is Doug. I just want to let you know 15 minutes till
Okay.
our session's over.
Yep, no problem. I'm nearly done. And we've got the information here. So let me just save that. So what I need to do now is go to the message center. We need to set up the sync. I want to search for the plan, and it was sync advanced. And do next. We'll import the last 7 days worth of changes. We'll finish that. We'll sync. Create the flow. That's done. And done. So now that should be syncing. So let's go and have a look and see what's happening. Let's see if this works. So we're in the evergreen change, message center sync, and we were looking at, we want to look at the advanced one, don't we? Let's have a look at advanced. There we go. So we can see the things coming in. So here's the sync, just as it was going through. So fingers crossed, my flow worked. So what should be happening is, and this can take a little bit of time to actually get going, it should start updating all of those tasks as we go through. This is always the bit that takes a bit of time. reason it's not doing anything. Just and it's not doing anything. Why is it not doing anything? Right, okay. I'm going to stop the sync and start it again and see if that makes a difference. It might have been because I was still in, I'll just double check. It's sync advanced, right? Check. So and it's frozen. So we've got some questions while this is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. What I can show you, as this doesn't seem to be working at the moment, is my test. So this is what it should look like. So as all well prepared plans always have a backup because it's obviously taking its time. So what will happen is all of the items coming in will automatically get classified. But what you'll see here is they've been classified and they've just said red and yellow. What you do have to do, and it's only that one time, is to go in and actually go in here and change all the labels. So I think pink was Teams, blue was OneDrive, green was, oops, I'm going to cut all these in. Got green was SharePoint. That'll do for the time being. So once you've actually got that there, they should be, it was red, whoever red was there. That was once you've got that there, you've got all of these things will all be tagged. What was yellow? I can't remember. Yellow was admin, but you'll have all of that information there, so you will be able to go and have a look at it. So if I go back to here, not doing anything yet. No, it's obviously failed to work. Sorry. So what it will have done, it will have added different people depending on the different change, and it will have added your checklist in for all of those. I know I'm mindful of time. Is there any particular questions?
Ross does have one over in chat. If you'd like, I can read it for you.
Yeah,
or you're looking at it.
Yeah, I've got it there. Earlier on, you stated these flows are owned by the person who creates it. If somebody leaves the company, can you change the owner? Yes, you can change that. You can have multiple owners, so you can go into your flow and change the owners of it. So you can go in here on the connections, the owners, you can edit it, you can add other owners here. So you can go into it, add owner or group as the owner. So you can do that, but be mindful as well as doing the owners, think of the connections as well as the owner. They're using Adele as a connection. So what you would have to do if Adele leaves and somebody else joins, you'd have to stop the connection and re-add in that connection again. But I'm going to
Nikki,
have one. Yep.
I was going to say, I might actually have an expanding question on that, on Ross's question. As a tenant administrator, can you see all the flows for your tenant easily or manage all your flows?
Not that easily. I don't think I'm not sure whether you can. I know there's some more reporting in it. I'm not, I won't be able to answer that, sorry.
No worry. I know there's not an easy way to do it. I'm wondering if that is all through PowerShell or the back.
You probably have to do it through that. Yeah. So I know there's some reporting and some analytics that's coming out for Power Automate, but I haven't really investigated that. So let's try one more time of getting this to work. Oh, somebody said with the Centre of Excellence kit. Yeah, so that's a whole package of information that will sort the help support the whole of the Power Apps packages. So let's just quickly create this.
And then, oh, that makes sense, Kirk.
Okay, so it looks like we can do some stuff. So I'm attempting again. So while this is hopefully fingers crossed, so we'll get some messages popping up in a minute. Are there any more questions on the process? Or how do people manage their evergreen change at the moment? That'd be interesting to see from the audience here. How do people currently manage their processes? If anyone wants to kind of put their hand up or post in the chat.
I'm going to start building our spin for a winner as well here, because we're
Okay.
getting close to the end of the time.
Yeah.
I know, but.
And it failed.
So with a few minutes left, as always with Microsoft Live demos, Nikki, I've had more than a few of my own that decide they don't want to work. Just
I know.
because
It's always the way, isn't it?
I think we all have experienced that, but it's been an awesome session, and I know we at the user group really appreciate it. And I hope our audience really appreciates it as well. And then coming up at noon is going to be our second speaker. What is it? Why can't I think? Our second keynote, that's the word I'm looking for. Our second keynote with Joel Olsing as well. And if you'd like, I can post a link in chat here to join it. Otherwise, it's on our website for the next meeting as well. Additional notes from our user group. Of course, we really do appreciate feedback, and I know our speakers definitely likes feedback as well. So I'll post a link in chat here. This survey does run the entire day, so it's kind of a overall of the entire event. And completing it enters you to win our grand prize at the end of the day. And let me spin our wheel of fortune. Can I say that? Probably. And then if there aren't any other questions, the winner of this session is that, and I apologize. The winner of this session is Kirk. It is Kirk Olson. I'll go ahead and stop this.